scontasini per Nedved, Pirlo, la conclusione in rete, Andrea Pirlo, un gol pazzesco, Del Piero, Alex, Del Piero, palla di Pogacar, Pogba, rete, un gol incredibile, Pogba fa esplodere lo Juventus Stadium.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 342 of the Turin Giants podcast, coming to you live, 5 minutes after the end of the scintillating match of football that we saw between Juventus and Monaco. My name is Zach, and I am, of course, joined by my good friend Frederic, as well as my good friend Jack. Gentlemen, were you as enamored with the game of football that we just witnessed as I was?
Fell in love all over again.
Yeah, that's why you love the game, right? Frederic, I'm noticing your lovely Turin Giants sweater on. Looks good on you, buddy.
Thanks.
Did this game look nearly as good as that sweater?
The difference between the Napoli game we saw live and this one is like night and day. It's unbelievable. I'm at a loss for words because it was very hard to watch and not fall asleep.
Yeah, well, it was a frustrated watch. I don't know about falling asleep, but there was a lot of frustration. I want to take a moment and quickly shout out to everyone in the chat. We are live, folks. So like Bohan, Mohammed, Randy, Large Bo, and everyone else in chat, we appreciate you. Thanks for being here. If you're listening later on audio, we appreciate you just as much. Please feel free to review our content, whether it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on YouTube at Turin Giants Official. Follow us on Instagram at Turin Giants. As Frederic said, we were just in Turin and we did a ton of fun content, or I hope it was fun for y'all. It was fun for us. And you can visit us at TurinGiants.com for merchandise like the Scoop shirt that I am currently wearing, or the Turin Giants hoodie that my man Frederic is sporting. As always, like and subscribe if you enjoy it. And we can be done with housekeeping. Let's get into talk about this game. And folks listening and watching, we were kind of discussing before, like, what are we even going to talk about? It was a 0-0, a game where nobody really played well. And so we're going to do the best we can to kind of break down what we just saw, the implications of what we just saw on the next round, as to whether we care that this was such a bland game, knowing that it was not going to affect where Juventus was going into the next round. So first things first, we knew that we weren't going to see as good of a match as we saw against Napoli. And we knew we were going to see a heavily rotated 11 because Spalletti told us so. Jack, did you expect the performance, even with those things in mind, to be this bland and this bad?
Yes.
Why?
So, oftentimes we see a team come out of such an emotional high. I think when we were fortunate enough to pipe you guys in live from your ride away from the stadium after the Napoli game, I think you used the term the perfect storm for the experience, right? How the emotional experience was such a roller coaster, so many positive emotions from the game, some beautiful goals, et cetera, et cetera. I think that takes an emotional toll on the players as well. It's the highest of highs, and it's really difficult, I think, to repeat a performance like that while still sort of managing your emotions coming back down to earth. So I think it's a tale as old as time, right? That you win a huge game like that, and there's a letdown. I think it's literally every semifinal in any tournament, right? Teams go for everything to get to the final, and then maybe bar the last World Cup final, right? We usually see a final that's not quite as exciting as the two semifinals. I think those emotions are really difficult to manage. So, all things considered, I did expect today, maybe not to be a letdown, but to be a bit emotionally flat, which is what we saw.
Jack is a firm believer in what we call here in the United States is the up-down theory of sports. The up Napoli, the down today. Frederic, I described it now several times as bad and horrible and every synonym of such. Was it that bad of a game of football, or am I being dramatic, or no?
It was the biggest pile of horse shit if I ever saw one. I'm sorry. There was absolutely nothing like from both sides. I know we're Juve fans, but this Monaco is the poorest Monaco I've seen in 15 years.
Yeah, they were really bad.
We were equally bad, and I didn't expect a stellar performance because coming off the Napoli high and the intensity and whatever and the trip and everything. But you'd expect a win even with the people on the pitch that we had, or at least something more. I mean, we didn't even saw a shot on goal, if I'm not mistaken.
No, not one.
And we saw 150 million worth of players perform in a manner that was, me trying to get my boots off out the basement to join them because I think I could do better. And this is not like an exaggeration of any sorts. It really came into my mind like I would have legit done better because it was painful to watch.
So let's take a look at the starting 11. Again, we knew certain people were going to start in certain positions. Spalletti said Coop Miners is going to be in the midfield. Openda is going to be at the number 9. But scratching his comments, Jack, kind of out of your mind and trying to maybe take yourself away from the game we just watched. Like if you were going to go into this game heavily rotating with the changes that you saw, Openda coming in, Moretti in there with Conceição, Coop Miners in the midfield, Cabal at the left side, the kind of changes that you would have made, or is there one thing that you stuck out that Spalletti should have done in your opinion or should not have done?
One thing that sticks out in my mind is Miretti and Yildiz spot. I think whether it's on the transfer market or within the roster we already have, or who knows in the future, maybe a next-gen player, we need someone to play Yildiz's role, right, when he needs a break and not have to bring him on at halftime because of how anemic our attack is. So I think that was a good experiment. I did think Miretti had some progressive play, right? There were a couple times where he could easily have slowed it down. And he did take that choice, but there were others where I thought he was turning. He turned one defender at one point and tried to make a pass through the middle, in the first half. And I thought that was positive. I think that we might see a little bit more of that. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw maybe Openda start for Yildiz in a game coming up. But I think we need someone in that position. So for me, that was at least a positive that he's thinking about who else can play in that spot and be effective. We know we're not going to have another Yildiz, but someone needs to be effective in that role.
Now we're gonna, because we got the opportunity to take a long look at some players who didn't get a lot of playing time, we are gonna kind of go one for one. But you sort of opened the door, Jack, to Moretti, and so I'm gonna turn to Frederic in terms of Moretti's influence in that vice Yildiz position. Were you as optimistic, or are you as optimistic as Jack sounds, looking at that moving forward? You're muted, my friend.
I'm sorry. I'm definitely not. No. A
Why?
hopeless display. You think that in such a game, granted the performance, of everybody was subpar, but you think at such a game, where you have the opportunity to play a Champions League game in a starting position, fairly critical game, I might add, because there were still, at the starting of the game, we still had the opportunity to finish within the 8 top seeded spots.
Up until the 80th minute, give or take.
Yeah, and you'd expect those players in general, but now we're, pointing at Moretti, which is also good, but you'd expect them to take that opportunity to start with a bit of oomph. I'm not saying, that they have to play technically perfect or whatever, but you just expect the mentality to be a bit more different. And that's my main gripe with today, just the mentality and the way they approached the game. And there wasn't any change throughout the game. It almost felt like I don't know if I can say it if it's politically correct, but it felt like a draw that
Choose
they.
your words wisely, my friend.
But I mean, it's not uncommon that this kind of biscotto things happen, and that they just say we'll go for a draw today, favors us both, and whatever. But you got that feeling at times because both of the teams weren't really pressed with the result and weren't really searching for that momentum to score or to win. And in all fairness, the guys that got their opportunity today disappointed me greatly.
Yeah, I
Greatly.
think your point about the mentality really stuck with me because I think at one point I texted the group. I'm like, this just looks like a disinterested bunch of players. They don't really feel like they want to be out there. Within the first 10 minutes, what we saw, Perrine and Kelly almost gift Monaco a goal. Jack, you know, it seemed like to me Spalletti was trying to go for it. You don't make two substitutions at half if you're just phoning it in for a draw. Is this a product of players just not being able to execute? And do you think it's a mentality thing? We'll go with this as the question, Jack. Do you think it's more of a mentality thing, or do you think it's just that with so many changes in the starting 11, they were clueless as how to play with each other?
No, I definitely would go with the former, with a mentality. Right, I referenced it a little bit earlier. This was a bit of a dip. I don't see today as of huge concern as far as the performance goes, much in the way I look back at Cagliari. Although that was a strong performance and a poor result, this was a mediocre performance and an acceptable result, if that's a way I can put it. I think Spalletti.
You give them mediocre.
Yeah,
You give them mediocre.
I give them horseshit.
Well,
yeah.
we know.
Just want to emphasize because
I
I'm sorry, Jack. Didn't mean to interrupt you, but I feel like this is still Champions League. Like this is not a Coppa Italia game. This is not an August friendly. This is still Champions League, and you had the opportunity to enter the final 8 with favorable draws, more money, whatever you want, and still you put this performance and mentality on the pitch. That just, I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me. This is a typical mentality of a team that is never gonna reach next level, in my opinion. And I'm sorry to hijack your comment here, Jack. So I'm gonna let you take the word.
I just wanted to clarify. I just wanted to clarify that mediocre was your stance because if it's not clear to folks listening, I thought we were worse than that. But I'm okay. I'm okay. You're entitled, Jack. You're entitled.
I use mediocre loosely, but yeah, I say this a lot. I'm the eternal optimist, right? I kind of expected this today. I think Spalletti was trying. I think at halftime, he knew there was a chance for top 8. I think all the way until the 80th minute, he was going for the win. I think a lot of those changes were too little, too late, and players being put on the field who he probably told earlier in the week, you might see minutes, you might not, right? This might be a week for you to rest. So mentally, you haven't prepared those players well to come onto the pitch, right? They're not in the headspace to come on and have an impact, with Champions League or not, right? So I don't know with his press conferences, with his private conversations with players, whether he had them mentally prepared for this game. And I think that had an impact on those players who came on the field that either he or we expected to have more of an impact on the outcome.
Yeah. Go ahead, Frederic.
I'm sorry. I just wouldn't be surprised if this was Spalletti sending out a message
To whom?
to management. Like, look at what I have in terms of material. If if Kenan is out, a position he definitely wants to see somebody else in to rotate, this is what you get. If you have a midfield with or lack of a midfield that doesn't bring any depth, this is what you get. If I don't get a striker that can turn games around, these ugly type of hard fought games, and I have to play a panda, this is what you get. I wouldn't be surprised if that was.
It was an absolute indictment against our depth, I think, which somebody said, and Kuba here says just wasted, a couple hours of his life. And I appreciate that you are joining after that match and you spending some of your time with us, everyone in chat as well, Akuba, Muhammad, Mikkel, Alliance, and everybody else in chat. We appreciate you. But, you know, with the depth, are you, I mean, just a simple, short answer, Jack. With the depth we displayed today, does that make you encouraged about, you know, deep runs into multiple competitions to close out the season?
Not today's Juventus, but what we've seen over the last 2 months, month and a half does.
But correct me if I'm wrong, we predominantly played with the same starting 11. I mean, the real only meaningful change we make is that Conceição position where we maybe swap him with Moretti, but it's largely been David, Gildas, Thuram, Locatelli, Cambiasso, McKennie, and the other Kalulu, Kelly, Bremer, right? It's like that's the team we play every, you know, if one of those guys are out, bar that one position that we rotate, Frederic, are we screwed?
Yeah. I mean,
why do I
there's
even
not
ask
much
you anymore? I already know.
No, but I mean, if you look at, and I'm just Openda, 45 million. Up until now, not just today's game, up until now, a flop. Koopmeiners, 65. For a year and a half, a flop. Correct me if I'm wrong and stop me if I'm saying anything that's incorrect. So we're at what? 10 million already. Conceição, 40 million. Sorry, not, you know. So we're at 150 already. Let me just add Zegrova to that list as well with another 18 to 20,
yeah,
depending on bonuses. We're at 180 million on 4 players that wouldn't even kick a dent in a pack of butter. So, I mean,
where did you find that one?
it's a Dutch expression. I just Englishified it. But
excellent.
I mean, it's disgraceful if you look at the performance they put in versus their value financially. And I know that you can't buy a team and whatever, but it's hard to look at these things and find some vision behind that, because these are players that you have to carry with you for a long time. These are not players that you can sell straight away. You have a lot of market share, we have a lot of interested clubs, and you're going to have to replace them because they're just not good enough. We saw that again today. But how are you going to do that? How are you going to pull that off? That's the big challenge. I don't think Comoli's ready for that challenge.
Well,
because for now,
I mean, the changes that have to be made. Look, we're going to take a step back. Normally, in a game where there's, you know, things, you know, goals, we'll break the game down either by the goals scored or by the first half and the second half. There were no goals, and there was no, at least in my opinion, notable change in the quality of performance from first half to second half. So we're not going to waste our time with sort of force-fitting the formula. Instead, let's talk about some of these players critically, okay? And I want to go through, I would kind of want to skip over a few of them with y'all's permission quickly, and then kind of get to the heart of some of these matters, okay? I would like to, unless you want to stop me, sort of skim over Kelly, Kalulu, Bremer. I don't think necessarily any of them were fantastic. Bremer seemed to step slow. Kelly had that one pass that was kind of brain dead. Kalulu was ineffective moving forward. But in generally, I don't think they were the cause of any concern.
But I wanna piggyback off something Jack said during the last podcast when we were in Turin. I think it was Jack that mentioned, because I listened to it on the flight home. I think Jack mentioned that Bremer is losing his step a bit since that injury.
Oh yeah, he looked slow.
Our whole back.
And yeah, today was another example of that. Now in the Napoli game where the tension is high, I think he still performs, even though there was some mishaps left and right. But through the physicality, he still manages to, you know, get on top at times, even though he's a bit slower, a bit less, how shall I put it, direct, in a sense that he fails to anticipate less. But today, I thought he was really poor. I thought he was really bad.
I
He
mean,
was really suffering.
he looked like it, and I was surprised we didn't see Gatti. Granted, I'm not exactly sure what fitness level Gatti is, but it to me it was like a no harm, no foul. They didn't really have any legitimate chances, and I think a lot of this game what came down to the midfield and the fact that both strikers stunk. Um, Good to see you as well, Del Piero 109, and everybody else in chat. You guys are the light in the darkness that was today's game. So we brief note on Bremer. Let's talk Cabal. So let's round up the defense. We saw Cabal. In my opinion, Jack, he's had absolutely no influence on the game whatsoever, and even a Cambiaso who runs around half the time like a chicken with his head cut off has more positive influence on the game. Was that your take of Cabal, or am I being too harsh?
I thought he did okay. Again, that mediocre word, right? Again, he doesn't play much. He comes on for 10, 15 minutes at the end of a game, if he comes on at all. Today, throwing him on there from the start was probably his best chance to show something. I thought in the first half he was making an effort to go forward. There was a ball down from the channel down to left wing, and he made a play for it. Him and I believe it was McKinney. He was hoofing after it and tried to get there, hoping to maybe put in a cross. Didn't get there, and just seemed kind of dejected at missing a few plays that he should have had a better play on, or a better play on the ball. I don't know that he's ineffective. I think he's a backup. Right, I think he's an off the bench. He's a Rugani coming off the bench, could be serviceable. Like I thought in the Napoli game when he came on, he understood his moments and was drawing fouls and playing the ball, up the sideline, etc. So I think he's serviceable. I don't know that he's a starting 11 in the Champions League, and I thought that was pretty clear today.
And with that in mind, Frederic, am I being too harsh? I mean, I've always kind of said Cabal has been a backup. I watched him before we bought him, and I was never as enamored as some folks were as thinking he was going to be this big thing. So is it? Is the sort of, should I be kinder to a guy who is maybe just a backup on our team coming in and trying to do a job the best he can?
I don't think you should. I think he's even less than a backup. I think he's there because we have no other backups. If you have a fully fit rotating squad with 22 players that, level-wise are pretty much about the same, then he wouldn't make the cut. And I think that's our biggest issue.
Would you have started? I mean, this is to both of you, but we'll go Frederic first since he was talking. Would you have started Kostic over Cabal?
Yeah.
Without the benefit of hindsight, would you have started Kostic over Cabal as our backup left back?
I think Kostic, the minute that he played against Napoli, played very well. And I think we were talking about that in Torino as well, you and I, Zach, that Kostic is a player who, when he gets the chance, does what he can. He's not the best of the whole squad or whatever, but he still puts his effort in. You never hear a bad word from him. Gives 100%. Technically, in my opinion, more able than Cabal, especially with, shooting on goal or crossing or whatever. So, comparing those two, of course, you always do it automatically with a bit of hindsight, but I just don't think Cabal, especially after that injury, is going to be one of those players that can decide a game or get into a team, if you know what I mean.
I'll just add, if I can add for a moment.
Yeah, no, I wanted to turn to you, Jack. Do you agree? Would you have started Kostic over Cabal in this case? And relatedly, do you think Kostic is ahead of him in the depth chart?
If I'm Spalletti and I'm trying to move the ball forward on the left side, yes. I might have considered starting Kostic because of his sort of offensive strengths. But I could also play in Spalletti's mind and say that Cabal has more Serie A goals than Conceição, Gigrova, and Openda combined. He has 2, and they are the same, and they have 2. So if I'm looking for offensive output, maybe Spalletti's saying Cabal gives me a little bit of that on the left side because I've had him get forward and score. He's also a big presence, right? So corner kicks that you have to defend, he's a big presence, and also corner kicks where that we have to our advantage in their box, he's another large presence. So Spalletti maybe had his reasons, but with the benefit of hindsight, I think Kostic might have been a better choice. Without, I could see why he was torn between the two if that was his choice.
Gotcha. Moving into the midfield, in the interest of time, I don't really want to discuss Thuram. I don't think he had a great game. I don't think he was god awful. I think there's other people that we could spend our time on. Without any objections, I would like to move to his midfield partner and Frederic's favorite topic of conversation, our good friend Toon Coop Miners. And Frederic, is he done? Is he done at Juventus? Is this over? Is it done? Like he's gonna be with us for the next 6 months, but is it in effect done? And that over the summer, us Scoop boys will be talking about his departure.
Well, it better be. I don't see the sense of beating a dead horse. I just don't see it. Like, there is literally no progression. There is no moments of light, no kind of performances that make you say, hang on, maybe there's a turning point here. Maybe there's some light at the end of the tunnel. Nothing, even today, and he was given a chance, like he played 3/4 of a game, if I'm not mistaken, or a bit less. But he was given the chance to do something, prove himself yet again in his position, because this was his natural position. I think it was the position that he wasn't exactly in the Locatelli position, but wasn't, that much forward either. So it was kind of like the position that he played at Atalanta, and nothing. Also the mentality, no pressure, no dual force, nothing. Just like it felt like we were playing with 9 men. It felt like Openda.
I was going to ask who the other one was.
Yeah, I mean, for me,
we'll get to Openda.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people want to talk about him, and I do as well. So, yeah. So I guess same question to you, Jack, as being more of a font of positivity here today. Is we talked about Coop being a functional left center back backup. And serviceable Locatelli replacement in the not too distant past. Do you stick by that, or are you as done as Frederic is?
No, this time I'm 100% in alignment with Frederic. I don't see any redeemable qualities anymore. I think his presence today in the starting lineup and throughout the game until he was subbed off only highlighted the importance of Locatelli in the lineup with how Spalletti wants to play, right? Coop wasn't capable of dropping into space to collect the ball and playing through the lines in the middle. When he was moving into advanced positions, he wasn't good at finding, Openda was nowhere to be found. I know we're going to talk about it. He wasn't good at finding feet or even moving the ball in the channel or out wide. He's just super ineffective. And the things that I think that we take for granted with Locatelli are even more glaring after watching a game like today.
I agree with that 1,000,000,000%. And I was going to talk about it mostly during the Openda bit, because I feel like the person we're going to probably say a few not so nice things about our striker today. But I feel like some of that was out of his control, and a lot of that came down to a midfield trio, Thuram, Coop, and Moretti, who aren't, at least the former two, haven't demonstrated expansive passing and vision with any degree of consistency or confidence. And Coop Miners today was he was a traffic cone. He wasn't really moving, and I couldn't agree more with what you said about us showing the lack of Locatelli and what this team looks like without him. With the teams, Frederic playing now more of a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, and that left center back position kind of gone. Does he really is he going to get any game time under Spalletti moving forward other than when we absolutely need a warm body?
That's a good question because I don't know what his relationship with Spalletti is, but I think Spalletti's, beginning to get sick and tired of giving him chances as well. So I think, this is the end of the line for him, especially if we progress in Champions League. Like every game now is going to count, for the qualification, and of course not just Champions League, also Serie A. So the games are getting to that, importance level, and I'm not sure that Spalletti is confident enough that Coop can pull it off. So on the other hand, if you're planning to sell him, you're gonna have to give him some play time in order to get him some exposure. So it's a very delicate decision, but
But does playing him actually help? If you have midfield performances, we talked about it before. He was playing well at center back, but if someone needs a midfielder, and this is what they see,
I just think it's gonna be a reproduction of the Douglas Luiz story that we're gonna have to loan him out and hope somebody scoops him up or at least pays for his salary. I think that's the best you can hope for at this point, because another club coming and spending 30, 35 to 40 million in order to get your books in balance is just not going to happen with this player. So I think the only rescue in terms of financial thing that you can hold on to is loaning him out and hoping that the other team is willing to pay his salary, at least with an option or an obligation to buy, even though I think that an obligation is going to be a stretch at this point.
Let's move on from Coop. Let's talk about Moretti. And we did a little bit earlier for folks who have recently joined. I see Azru and other folks, Jimbo, who noted maybe they joined a little bit after. We talked a little bit Moretti before, but he again looked really slow today. And the Moretti from a few games ago, where we saw him beautiful assists and contribution to goals, was absolutely exposed with a little physicality and man marking. Jack, was that more, in your opinion, due to the ineffective people behind him so that he couldn't find those pockets of space, or sort of flaws in his game rearing their head again?
I think a little bit of the latter. Part of it, I think, was formational, right? Him going from the 3 behind the striker to 2 behind the striker today. I thought some of the spaces that we've seen him run into, particularly if I'm remembering in the Sassuolo game, where he was running into the box, a la what I remember from McKinney a lot last season and the season before, making some of those later runs. I think that the position today didn't afford him those running lanes, and he seemed a bit lost, and I think that contributed to him being so slow. I had to clarify earlier, I wasn't singing Miretti's praises. I was more or less happy that Spalletti gave someone a try in that spot, recognizing Yildiz needed a break. I wasn't thrilled with his performance. Again, some of it formational, some of it just his confusion playing in that spot.
Same question to you, Frederic, just sort of looking at his play, because we've seen from Moretti maybe the most bipolar play. I mean, he's had maybe the assist of the season with the outside of the boot through ball to, I believe it was McKennie a few games ago. That was just unreal. And then you see him a game like today where a light breeze knocks him over or bumps him off the ball.
In all honesty, it was kind of similar in Next Gen when I seen him play, although in Next Gen he made much more of an impact. So I was kind of hopeful after those performances that we would see them already that I saw in Next Gen, but it's clear that we didn't. So that final step is always missing with Moretti, and maybe this was also Spalletti's way of seeing or testing who's he going to play with next season. Maybe he's already doing his homework and seeing, okay, who can handle the pressure, who's ready, who can I shape in another position. With Coop, he was kind of forced to back when he started out on that left back position. Now he has a bit of freedom to test the likes of a Moretti, of an Openda, whoever, before making his final decision. Because I think it's pretty clear to Spalletti that there's not gonna be much of a change in this transfer market. So we might as well prepare for the next one, given the fact that he'll probably extend his contract with Juventus, and see what positions need to be fortified and who can be gone, and who you're going to get in return. So maybe it was kind of experimenting on that part, but I don't think that Moretti, given the opportunities that he's had, will be a starting player for Juventus. He's a cabal type of player. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit, and that's that. There's no consistency. It's all fun and games when you play Sassuolo and you're having a great game, but the games that count the most, the Champions League games or whatever, those are the games where you need to validate yourself, and he just doesn't seem to do that, and neither does the scope. So we have a whole bunch of problems in that respect regarding the future.
I think that also we don't want to gloss over the fact that he's only 22. Right? We have these enormous expectations because we have a player like Yildiz on our roster. 20, 21, 22-year-old players are not necessarily at their physical peak. They're not at their peak maturation with regards to the game. I think there's still a lot of room for improvement with Miretti. I think he shows some of those flashes. I don't disagree with it. I don't think he's a starting player, but I think he's a very serviceable Juventus bench player who can come on and make an impact and have his say if he's playing really well, he's in a good moment. So
there's fundamentals, though. There's fundamentals that you look at, Jack. Like, some players are just physically gifted. You're like, if only this player could develop a touch, right? Well, you can with practice. Moretti is slow. That ain't going to change. He's not very strong. That's probably not going to materially change. And so what you need him to do is work on his balance so that he can spin off defenders, a la our favorite hanger-oners, Artur and Douglas Luiz, their little spin moves to bounce off defenders and create space for themselves. And he hasn't got that yet. And you say only 22. I mean, there's limited time for him to capture that to stay at a team like Juventus. That's just a fact. And when you look at, and this may be an unfair comparison, the skill set of Moretti versus Fagioli, I think Fagioli is way more equipped to be a Juventus player in the long term, simply because he has the strength, he has the balance, he has passing range, he has two-way playing, and so forth. Is he great at any of them? Maybe not, but he has the ingredients. I think Moretti's very noticeably lacking in various areas that will make it very hard for him.
Fagioli is also 3.5 years older. Again,
well, I don't think he's 3.5 years older. He is. I think maybe one, but still, when they were both on our roster, I think certain aspects of people's play can improve easier under certain conditions. If speed and strength are your weakness, it's going to be a long career.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think pieces around the player make a big difference. Fagioli, for all the qualities he showed when he was on our roster, is lost in the sauce at Fiorentina.
Real quickly, before we move to Chico, our good friend Dan has joined us to let us know that Coop is not a footballer. If you were not here earlier, Dan, the three of us agreed with you on that. So if you've just joined, please go back. Because of how crappy the game was and that it was 0-0, we were not doing our normal breaking down periods of play, first half, second half, or anything like that. We're just kind of reviewing, highlighting the players that we haven't seen as much of, kind of with a mind of looking forward as we go through 3 competitions for the rest of this year. Chico Conceição, can we just chalk it up to a really bad 45 minutes and move on to Openda?
Bad 45, bad couple of games, bad season.
Yeah, it's just in the interest of time, I don't necessarily need to rehash our greatest hits.
No, but I think this is an underlying issue as well, because if we look at Cope, if we look at Miretti, if we look at Conceição, they all suffer from the same flaw in terms of never grabbing their chance. They're not not just getting it, they're getting those chances, they're not grabbing it. So, if you put everything on the balance scale, maybe you should just, get at peace with the fact that they're just not good enough. And yeah, the same with Openda. We'll move to Openda because Chico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question, yeah, I mean, and look, the reason why skipping Chico is that all of our persistent comments, negative comments associated with him, were on visible display for 45 minutes, and then Spalletti took him off the pitch. So again, in the interest of not beating a dead horse, to whichever one of you said that earlier, let's go to Openda, because I think this is I think an important discussion point, because if we're not going to get another striker, and we posted on the Scoop Instagram and on Turin Giants Instagram that the next 24 hours will be key for Randall Colomwani as those discussions continue, and I believe he scored today. But if that RKM doesn't join, and I think it's unlikely that he does, Frederic, you told us that we're not going to be signing any other strikers. So we have to. So the rest of the season is largely going to be Openda and David, and we got to see Openda starting against a team who played defensively pretty open and with a relatively high line. So that is like the perfect recipe for Openda. But I'm going to defend him a little bit, Jack. I think he was an absolute victim of the players around him. One, we had nobody to deliver him reliable balls in the channel. He got maybe 4 the whole game. And that's where he's strong. Additionally, Spalletti waited till the 83rd minute to put David on. And Openda was at his best when he had a big striker like Šeško at Leipzig, who would occupy those center spaces and allow him to play off of players. When he did get the ball, Openda, today, there was nobody in any zip code, acreage, or whatever you want to call it, the country, time zone of him, such that there was nothing he could do with it. And to that point, I guess my question to you, Jack, is Openda just bad, or was he set up to fail, or both?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of both. I think his touch was off today. He settled the ball nicely a few times, but that doesn't make for a positive, productive day. I think he was a victim of the setup, the formation. One of our great live followers here, who I want to take a second to thank for joining us again. I don't remember who it was. Said even R9 would have struggled to score today with that support from the midfield. And I think that just kind of hammers home what we're talking about here, right? There was, you said it all, right? There was no service. He didn't have any connection with any of the players who were making runs when they were making runs. Oh, there you go. You found it, Mitch. There you go. Thank you, Mitch. Lost my train of thought, but nothing was really happening up top, right? Nothing was going his way. And I think that Mitch's comment hits the nail on the head. There wasn't much happening around him or behind him.
So Frederic, and I feel like we'll give some scoop updates after we finish the game about Colomwani and Mingueza and some other players that we've talked about. But sure, for right now, let's finish the game. Frederic, I'm not going to let you choose both. Was today a product of Openda just being bad, or him just getting completely isolated by the team put around him?
He was predominantly bad, because I feel when you're a striker, even though you don't get a lot of balls in, it's your responsibility as a striker to force some things to happen. I'm not saying you have to score a hat trick or whatever, but you can and must expect a bit more if you're the center forward of Juventus. And we had, our talk on the Scoop past summer, that we didn't even know what role Openda was going to occupy within this team, coming from the Tudor era. And now we have Spalletti, and we're at the same level. We don't know what his role is, what his capability is, and it's been disheartening and disappointing. And for me, at the end of the day, he's not somebody who's vital to the team. He's of relative low importance. And I just feel that, as we said, we overpaid for him. Not just that, we have him on our books, we have him on our roster, and I can't see what we can do with him. We can't sell him now or loan him out now, so we're stuck with him till the summer and see what happens. But to me, he's just not adequate for Italian football as a whole, especially not at Juventus. So we had our questions before he arrived. We still have them after 8 9 months. I think that's food for thought right there.
Or that's your answer.
Yeah.
Or that's your answer. Well, let's take a step back. Okay, we there was no goals. There's nothing else. I mean, we just talked about the players today. Let's take a step back and just look subs. 2 subs at half. Yildiz and Odzic came on. Yildiz ended the game with 22 touches in his half, which is really low for him, and 10 of 15 passing, which wasn't very good. Odzic had very little influence on the game. You had Zagrova come on. Zagrova, who got 30 minutes, had 8 touches of the ball. You had Cambiaso come on late. He at least did some passing on the ball, and then David coming on in garbage minutes did very little. Jack, earlier you said that it seemed like the team wasn't really ready to play. It seemed like maybe the subs didn't really want to play today. Was that the impression you got with just how empty their performance was? Or in the case of Yildiz, was it similar to Openda, where the team just couldn't find him to even get him involved?
I think just referencing David there is important. He did only come on for a few minutes, but I thought he had a couple of positive touches, turned a defender at one point, which is more than we saw from Openda. I didn't necessarily understand Spalletti at that point. At least my impression of him taking Thuram off and putting David on was kind of going for it. Because I think by the 80th, 83rd minute, there was no chance for 8th place anymore. And I don't know how closely he was paying attention.
Somebody was passing. Somebody had to be passing notes.
Yeah, I'm sure that. So then, to me, it really doesn't make any sense. We definitely didn't want to give up a goal, and I was surprised Monaco weren't sitting back because with every passing minute during the game, they went from 25th to 23rd, 22nd, 20th, right, with all the other results around them. And I'm sure their coach was listening in. I was expecting at least in the last 20 or so minutes for them just to sit back with 11 behind the ball and try to frustrate us. But I don't know that the subs made any difference. I just go back to my comment earlier that they didn't seem prepared to play, and that's why we saw what we saw on the field.
Would you agree with that, Frederic? That these were guys who didn't want to play and really weren't prepared to play because they were hoping the guys on the pitch would do the job for them?
Pretty much so. I feel that even Odzic was really awful today.
Yeah, he should have been prepared though. Like, this is a game where he should have been expected to play, right?
You also feel that you're going to get minutes. I think when you're training, and especially after witnessing the Napoli game, after hearing your coach telling the media that he's going to rotate, I think you can expect to have some minutes. And once again, another chance that he got, and a number of people got, and they didn't grab it, and that not just speaks volumes of our quality, but also the mentality. So there isn't much to say. The subs weren't better; they were even worse, I think, than the people starting. Yeah.
Should we spend time talking about? I mean, other than Odzic, should we spend time talking about the other ones? It's just like, I think Jack, I kind of agree with him in the sense that Yildiz, Cambiaso, David were kind of hoping not to play. Odzic should have done better, like we said. Maybe let's talk a note about Zagrova, and then we'll stop the players and we'll kind of round out the game. People in chat are not particularly pleased with it. They're happy to move on. What we'll do is we'll talk some scoop. We'll look at the upcoming Champions League draws and the upcoming game. So there are some cool things to talk about. So let's get to that. Zagrova, he came in again, 73rd minute. He has played Monaco a lot in his career, coming from France himself. drifted out wide on the right where he likes to have it, and in 20 something minutes had 8 touches, 4 passes, 1 shot off goal. How concerned are you, Jack, about Shugrova?
He was completely absent today, clearly emphasized by the stats you just shared. I don't see him growing into his role. We spent the first, 16 weeks-ish of the season saying he's coming off an injury. We got to give him time. I don't see anything. The Shugrova that ran all over Cabal when we played them in the Champions League is non-existent. It's not the same player. I don't know the injury, Fred. I think maybe you've mentioned in the past that you have an understanding of what that injury is like, and you've spoken to it very eloquently. But it seems like something very difficult to come back from, and that it's going to impact him for a long time. And I personally, without knowing I don't have any scoops, but it doesn't seem like he's going to dig his way out of that hole. Conversely, I would say the opposite about someone like David, right? Who it seems like he has the ability to, the mentality to, and the desire to turn a corner. I don't really see that from Shugrova. So he's a concern for me up and down.
Yeah, so at least David's second on our team in goal contributions now. I think we can all agree the last month for him has been a big jump in quality and involvement relative to the beginning of the season. Shugrova hasn't contributed anything to this team. I think I'm to the point, Frederic, where I think he just needs an off season. Like, shut him down, heal, rest, reset, and hope that a la Kelly, he comes back improved, as opposed to a la Coop, he come back unchanged.
His medical bulletin is a disaster.
Lately it has, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on there. I don't know the progress. I don't know what the physiologists are planning or looking ahead to, but this is a player that is utterly useless in every way, shape, or form. So you either go one way or the other. You either, like you said, let him rest, prepare him for next season, let him play these 10, 15 minutes every 2 weeks or whatever to see if he could get some minutes in. But if you're not confident that he'll recuperate, or we'll see the same Shugrova we saw last season and the season before that, then you need to sell him. It's not like we lose a lot of money on Shugrova. I think we could still sell him with some profit, whatever. But he's not the player that we were expecting, and I think we were expecting a lot more, especially in this stage of the season. We were hoping to see him fully match fit around February. Well, it's a couple of days from February, and he still isn't. So something's wrong there. Something's not going well. It's a shame, but these things happen. We took a gamble on a player that we knew was injured. I think that's why we got him for cheap, because fully fit Shugrova you could sell for 40 to 50 million easily, and not for 15 like we purchased. So I think we knew that it was a risk. We took that risk, and for now we're losing that gamble. But who's to say in the future? But I don't see him as a Juventus player yet. I know that sounds really weird, but I just don't see him bringing any added value on. I think when you see Shugrova entering, the only reason that he's entering is to give him some minutes to build up that resistance and get some game time in his legs. I think that's the only thing we can take away from that. It's not that Spalletti thinks that he's going to make some sort of impact on the game and that he's going to turn it around. He's hoping for that, but realistically, you heard the stats, appalling stats.
Yeah. We're going to skip something we normally do, which is the man of the match, because we kind of went down all the players, right? And everyone kind of
there isn't any.
So I just want to finish the discussion about the game before we get to maybe more exciting things by asking possibly a weird question. But now that we look at the table, even if we had won, we would have not gotten top 8. If we had lost, we would have dropped a couple places. So considering the rotation gave rest to certain players, and in a game that was, in the grand scheme of the Champions League table, meaningless. Jack, do we care? Like, how much do we care about today's performance and result?
I don't. I said that a little earlier. It's not, to me, a make or break. We weren't moving in the table. I think Spalletti was trying to give a few players a chance. We mentioned Cabal and Coop and Openda, Adzic. None of them took the bull by the horns. Any one of them going out there and making a difference, scoring a goal, providing an assist would have been, really nice to see. I like that. More meh of a match. I like that.
It was a lot of meh of the match.
But no, it's not going to impact us one way or the other. Much like the Cagliari thing was nice. The Cagliari game, is nice to see. It didn't impact a thing with our mentality going into the Napoli game. I don't imagine this is going to impact us much going into the weekend, I believe, against Parma.
Yeah. Before Frederic responds, folks in the chat, and y'all have been fantastic and really active throughout. Put whether you care or don't care about today's result in the grand scheme of things, because I feel like we've spent almost an hour, as us three grumpy old men, kind of complaining about, or at least critiquing, the performance and the players. But I don't want to lose sight of the big picture, right? Again, the result was largely meaningless from a table standpoint. Frederic, do you care, like at the end of the day, about this game, or do or don't you?
Well, for me, it was important to see how the players that got their chance tonight, how they do, and we saw the results. So I'm concerned and a bit let down by that. Like, the table is what it is. We knew that we didn't have it in our own hands. Still, we were dependent on various results, so the hopes weren't that high. But I just feel that if you're a player at Juventus, you get this chance, and there's still a possibility. You should just go all out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I was expecting to see from the players who got minutes today. And not seeing that makes me disappointed and makes me feel a bit well, I don't know how to put it, but scared for the future. Because at one point in the season, when critical games do arrive, you'll still need those players, even though it's going to be for the last 15 to 20 minutes. There are going to be some critical turning points in this season where we will need them in some way, shape, or form. And realizing now that you cannot absolutely count on them to make any sort of difference is worrying to me for the future, because let's be honest, we're still not safe in the table. Serie A, we did a good job winning against Napoli, was awesome, but we still have a long way to go. And so the result, the table wasn't as important to me, but the mentality or the players grabbing their chances was, and I was let down by that.
I'd only add that I feel like since Spalletti came on, the trend has been, when the heat is turned up and the pressure is on, a la Bologna, Roma, Napoli, we're showing up, right? I think he set them up for a little bit of failure with his press conference the other day, saying it's going to be nice to see Openda with no pressure, right? Or whoever was going to be on the field with no pressure, no concern about what what outcome the result would yield as far as the table goes. So I don't know that Spalletti sets them up for success, but I do think that, while it's a small sample size, when the pressure has been turned up, most of the players have showed up to play. They've shown some heart, a desire to win, a desire to, defend well, play between the lines, move the ball forward, create scoring chances, etc. So to me, that part is encouraging, which is probably why I like that meh response, because today's game, to me, doesn't feel like, in the grand scheme of things, we're going to look back and remember anything about Monaco Juve.
The thing is, and Zach, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but I feel that a lot of our players are intimidated or fired up or hyped up in the proper context. If you saw, the stadium vibes were electrifying from the moment we entered, I think, Zach, all around, as in just the vibes and the volume and the atmosphere. and some players thrive off that. But if you're a real good player, then it's an added value, but you don't need that. You can go in a half-empty stadium with not a lot of supporters like on the Monaco pitch today and still put in that performance.
Yeah, and that's
Like
yeah, a lot of
yeah, or
people. Sorry, Frederic. I
no, it's
apologize.
okay. It's okay. It's okay. But I mean, we had players in the past that played on that same pitch in that same stadium and still managed to put in an A-class effort,
Yeah.
and not having the Juventus stadium behind them or the Curva Sud or whatever, and then the hype and then whatever. So I feel that that's also a quality you need to possess as a player, that you can just perform when you need to perform, regardless of the atmosphere and all these byproducts that surround you.
And so several people replied, "I don't care, I don't care, I don't care," but they qualified it. Many of them, like Mitch and Sky did, is that they were concerned with the player quality and the mentality, and that's why I do very much care about this game, because if I'm getting a chance, if I'm Odzic and I have 45 minutes in the second half to show that I deserve to leapfrog Moretti on the depth chart or whatever, I'm going to show. I'm going to be out there showing that I'm at least the hardest working guy on the pitch. Sometimes your touch just lets you down, right? This happens. But I look at guys like Moretti and Coop Miners and Cabal and Odzic, and they did not seem very interested to being on the pitch. And I give Spletty the benefit of the doubt. Our team is played in such a way that's clear that at least the starters know what their coach wants of them. So I don't think that there's a lack of messaging from Spalletti in terms of what he wants his players to do. I just saw a lack of drive, and that makes me really concerned, because a team requires more than 11 guys to compete across 3 competitions. And that was the biggest and notable thing that even the folks who said they don't care agreed with, is that there was a lot of concern with our depth. But with that, gentlemen, can we cleanse ourselves of this game, a game that we watched for 90 minutes and then talked about for 60 more? Let's kind of move ahead, okay? As we look at our team, I just want to briefly, and we'll keep this real tight, guys, look at our group stage, okay? We finished, make sure, 13th, yeah, 13th. We have 3 wins, 4 draws, 1 defeat, the one against Real. Over the course of that campaign, we saw a coaching switch, which then coincided with the 3 straight wins against Bodo Pafos and Benfica. And we know who we might face in the next round. We'll get to that next. But before we get to that, Jack, in light of the turbulence within the team and all this stuff, finishing 13th, going to the next round, stringing the other 3 wins before today's draw, do you see this group stage as a success for this Juventus?
Yeah, for sure. For what we're putting out on the field, this team is not challenging for the top 8, despite what those slim chances were today. I think this was a successful league phase for this year. I believe we finished a few places higher than we finished last year, at least.
We did.
8 seeded playoff spots versus the other 8 unseeded where we were last year. So, listen, I say a lot progress, right? We're trending in the right direction. I think it was a rough start, but 3 important wins in a row, and then a somewhat meaningless game to kind of round out the group stage. The Real Madrid game was always going to end the way it did. We missed opportunities earlier in the year under a different coach, which I think some of those games might have ended differently with the way the group is playing now. But I'm sure
Villarreal, that one really,
which I'm sure a lot of teams can say, right? So, all things considered, I think it was a relatively successful league phase.
Frederic, Jack says that our league phase was a success.
Well, if the former champions of Italy can qualify and we can, I'd definitely put that as a win in my book. So
a nice dig against Napoli, who has been knocked out of the Champions League, as frankly all of us expected, because Conte just doesn't care about Europe. And if I'm not mistaken, Frederic, with the loss against us, with the knocking out of the Champions League, I think we're ripe for the Conti collapse that we had
It's
promised
normally
earlier this
around
year.
It's normally around Valentine's Day, so we're right on schedule there.
Right on
So
schedule.
we talked about this at length, but it's typical, and the fact that I don't know if you guys noticed, but Conte is very stressed because he had a dig at Spalletti as well today.
Yeah, they had a little spat.
He reacted on something, I don't know, and then Spalletti reacted and said, "Oh, was that Conte? I thought that was AI generated or something like that." So, but it goes to show, and even Napoli, because everybody had big hopes for Napoli domestically and in Europe. But it just goes to show that if you lose a number of very important players in your team, no matter the coach, no matter the system you play, or the replacements you bring in, it's always going to be difficult. And I'm very happy that Napoli didn't go through. I couldn't care less. I hope they get to Serie B in my lifetime still. But it just goes to show the importance of combining a coach and the players he needs. So this is my call out to Comoli and whoever. If you have that faith in Spalletti, and Spalletti's proven what he can do, for the love of God, if it's not now, be it in the summer, give him the players that he wants so we can get back to competing, because it'd be a shame if we can't build on the things or the foundation that we're laying this season, because that to me is what it is. So I have no hopes. Everything is an extra, and the fact that we're through and still have a couple of games in Europe ahead of us against beatable opponents and extra financial gain makes it all the better to me. So I could definitely see this as a success.
So let's talk about that. We finishing 13th. That means that Juventus and Atletico Madrid, who finished 14th, will face either Club Brugge or Galatasaray, as our good friend, I think if I put his name together, Josh, has informed our chat. Jack, who would you prefer to play out of these two teams? And be careful, knowing that Club Brugge is kind of in Frederick's backyard. He might disagree with you. Do you care?
I'll be perfectly honest. I don't have much of an opinion. I don't know either club that well. They're going to come across, on paper as the quote unquote, we're the favored team in the draw, which is not a label we've risen to recently. So that's the only part I feel like that is of concern to me. Galatasaray, I mean, it's going there is a tough place to play, so that away game will be difficult in a somewhat harsh environment. But the same could be said for Club Brugge. They have a pretty rowdy fan base, from what I remember from a handful of group games I might have seen over a few years. But no, I don't have a preference one over the other. They're going to be challenging ties for us no matter what, because we make challenging ties even out of what should be easier ties.
The chat says, Frederic, that they don't want Galatasaray away, but you have railed against Club Brugge Stadium on this program. So do you disagree with them?
Yes.
Okay, give it to us.
Brugge, given our history, is shit to play against as a team, and it's even shittier to play in their shitty stadium. So yeah, I think you can conclude what I'm going. But they both have their benefits, their upsides, and their downsides. But for me, I definitely I take at this point Galatasaray, because apart from the fact that you're in that hostile environment, I think Galatasaray is a team which you can beat by technical football. They'll try to play technical football as well. You can counter that easily, because if we have a full team and we're riled up, we can match that easily. Whereas if you play against Brugge, it's going to be a very physical, dirty battle of a game where we don't excel in. If we can play quick, clean, technical, refined football, if our players allow that, like we saw against Napoli, then, no worries there. But if you have to, dig in and battle and fight and scrap and whatever, then, all of these little negative sides around our squad depth, about our mentality, about our height as a whole, as a team, come into play. So I'd rather, even though I would love to see, I'd rather face Galatasaray at this point in time than Brugge.
Now, I'm going to kind of agree with Mitch here, because kind of what he's getting at with his comment saying that some years ago we would be talking about how many goals we'd win by is that as Juventus, these should be very winnable games. No, like these are games that we should progress, and if we don't, that would be an upset. Correct, Jack?
Yeah, agreed. We should progress. Well, Frederic has spoken very clearly and eloquently about Brugge and the struggles we've had with them. But I'll also throw in there on the flip side of the coin, Victor Osimhen's a bit of a boogeyman for us, right? He scores a lot of goals against us. He causes us a lot of trouble. He caused Bremer a lot of trouble every time they met up when he was at Napoli. Bremer is not the Bremer he used to be. So a Galatasaray forward line, while I don't know much about them, just the idea of Victor Osimhen back up there running against our center backs, who, while have had a few good games, are not inspiring a ton of confidence, particularly in the first half today. That worries me a bit. But yes, should be very winnable. But like I said earlier, we like to make a mess out of things in the Champions League.
Do you agree, Fred?
No, because Lyon, Villarreal, Ajax were both winnable when we had a different team, and it all comes down to how much you want to win. And
Yeah.
this is especially in 2026 type of football. This is something that defines the outcomes of games. And given the fact that we're mentally a bit fragile, I still feel we're not at the top yet. Those games are going to be challenging because you have to get fired up against playing Brugge, which is not the funnest team to play against, not the biggest feature in a Champions League competition. And the same can be said for Galatasaray. So it's difficult. I'd rather face, like, in the next round, should we qualify, we either face Tottenham or Liverpool. I'd rather face one of them now instead of Brugge or Galatasaray, because you'll get a lot more space, you'll get a lot more hype, a lot more publicity, a lot more that Champions League feeling, the nerves and the motivation you need as a player, as opposed to games against Brugge and Galatasaray. And I don't mean that negatively towards them, but I mean, imagine playing in Brugge in the rain and freezing cold in a small stadium, 100 years old, as opposed to going to Anfield or whatever. There is a difference in motivation there. So
I don't disagree with you, Fred. The question being, should we win, though? Right? That's where I disagree. I think we should.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we should, even this Juventus, we should consider it a disappointment if we don't progress to the next round. We're going to just quickly run through the next fixtures, and then we're going to end with scoop stuff in the interest of time. So we've got a really tough string of games going, folks. I think we can all agree that this will be a gauntlet that will determine our future in all three competitions. We've got Parma on Sunday, the easiest one of a string of difficult ones. Then we have the Atalanta and the Copa on Thursday. We've got Lazio, we got Inter, potentially our first round Champions League game after Inter, then Como, then maybe another Champions League game, and then Roma. So these are I think a gauntlet's the best way I can put it, Jack, that will decide by the end of February really where we stand in these competitions. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's going to tell us a lot. We talked a bit about this on the last pod. These next 6 weeks are a big deal for us. If we're still fighting in all competitions, if we make it through the playoff round in the Champions League, which we should, if we make it past Atalanta in the Copa, which we should, and I don't know, I haven't done any math, right? From those 5 games or so in Serie A, if we can collect 12 points, which I think will be challenging, we should still be in a position to finish in the top 4, which I think is our realistic objective for the season.
Let's move on and finish with some scoop stuff. We have got some plans, so we got to go. but we have to answer at least what the people want. Mitch wants the scoop, and we'll start off with our good friend Dan, Colo 99's question. Look, Frederic, the man needs to know if he needs to make a hype video. So let's help him out here. Colo 99 asks, will RKM be scoring against Juventus in that round of 16 match, or for Juventus against Tottenham?
I wish I had a glass, crystal ball, or however you want to call it, but I don't. But considering the fact that the Kolo Muani deal was going to be hellish in terms of negotiating with Tottenham and PSG simultaneously, the fact that he scored today doesn't make it any better, because, as we know, Tottenham don't have that many strikers due to several reasons. And the fact that, he scored today will make them more reluctant onto letting him go, especially for a loan. Add that to the mix that we're not PSG's favorite club in the world after the summer debacle with Kolo Muani. I'd say it would surprise me if we could get the deal done. But you never know. He wants to move to Juventus real bad. He made that obvious, as well as in talks with Tottenham as PSG. So we'll see. Tomorrow's going to be all or nothing. If tomorrow nothing can be done, we'll pull the plug and move on with the team that we have. If there is an opportunity or possibility to sign him, we'll continue pressing him until deadline day. But if tomorrow a firm no arrives, then I don't think we'll search any alternatives, and we'll leave it at that. With regards to the center forward position, at least.
Yeah, so let's move on from the center forward position. I think the conclusion, folks, unfortunately, at least for those who like Kolo Muani, is it's unlikely, but there's going to be a push for it over the next 24 hours. We have two fullbacks that we want to talk, or at least I want to get an update on. Frederic Mingueza, who of course was talked about, and they're waiting to see how their European ties would end, so on and so forth. And then we recently posted that Arnau Martinez, Girona's fullback, that we previously reported was being followed by Juventus, is back in the mix. What updates do you have for us on the two fullbacks?
Arnau Martinez deal has a bit more priority because he has a release clause in Juventus. Because it's very difficult to handle both the RKM transfer and the other. They're still trying to push Celta de Vigo to lowering that clause with a loan option, with an option to buy in the summer if Champions League is met. Juventus are willing to seal the deal for around 10 million, and they're waiting on Celta to respond. I'm not sure what Celta's going to do or how they will react to that. If a deal can be made for 10 million with a loan, then we will definitely snag him up, but we'll have to wait for Celta to give the green light or agree or renegotiate or whatever. But the priority at this moment is Kolo Muani.
All right. In the interest of time, because Jack's got to run, Zach's got to run, and Frederic probably has to go to bed since it's after midnight. I want to thank everybody who joined us in chat. If you have questions, like I know there's some other questions about players, you can ask us directly. Frederic's at the Scoop Juve on Instagram. You can message us at Turin Giants. That gets cycled to all of us. Mine is Zach Talks Calcio. So reach out to us directly if you have questions. Put them in the comments. We do review those. Other than that, and we're going to end with this. I think we have 2 episodes tomorrow. We're going to do a quick little episode about our experience at the stadium. We're planning to be with Beppe. Then we might do a scoop on Friday, and then we've got the game this weekend. So a lot of stuff coming from Turin Giants. Please like, subscribe when you see those lives. Put on the notifications.
Buy some merch.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You like sweater or your scoop shirts. Always appreciate the support. Guys, everyone in chat, y'all have been fantastic. Jack, Frederic, I appreciate you and your time. And until we speak again, to everybody, as always, Forza Juve.